markets now. Want to point out CNBC and all other UK broadcasters prohibit UK law prohibits CNBC and other UK broadcasters to provide election coverage. Meaning we are doing another time Minecraft markets now. Indeed, you're right. We are going to be doing not a voting simulation this time. We are going to do a, that may be a little bit better sound. We're going to do a Minecraft survival live stream, if that isn't long ago. Yeah, indeed, yes. Alright, welcome everybody, and we'll start in just a few minutes. Okay, let's repeat the intro. UK polls are open for 2 hours, 0 minutes, and 32 seconds. That's the official countdown. Then we get the first exit polls. First real results coming at midnight London time. If I count good, that must be 7 PM Eastern, that is 4 PM Pacific. Right, of course I'm going to call this world markets right now. And yeah, Minecraft survival. Amplified world comes to PS4. Really? Yeah, we're going to do amplified. Amplified. Hello everybody, first amplified live stream. Hello. So we'll say large, cause no, the other things we don't need. We're going to will have the keep inventory on and the mob griefing off as always. Markets now. This is how we're going to do it. Set difficulty to normal. Get it some little challenge. Alright. It's currently 8 o'clock in London. We are going to this time we're not going to CNBC, however we're going to Bloomberg. I want to know what is Bloomberg doing also, because they also provide market coverage a little bit more.
It's 3 p.m. in New York, 12 p.m. in San Francisco, and 8 p.m.
Wait, oh my god, okay.
It's 3 p.m. in New York, 12 p.m. in San Francisco, and 8 p.m. in London. I'm Julia Chatterley. And I'm Scarlett Boo. Welcome to Bloomberg Markets. World headquarters in New York over the next hour. Here are the top stories we're covering on the Bloomberg and around the world. In politics, fired FBI Director James Comey complicated communications with President Donald Trump in full view today. The ousted intelligence head told lawmakers that he thinks he was fired because of the way the Russia investigation was being conducted, and that the president pressed him to, quote, let go of the investigation into former Trump aide, General Michael Flynn. And in markets, U.S. equities are steady on the heels of Comey's testimony, but business leaders told Bloomberg that they're concerned about all the noise in Washington. And JP Morgan CEO Matt Zames is leading the bank. He was considered the CEO's successor to Jamie Dimon. We'll break down the future of the leadership at the bank. Now we're 1 hour from the close of trading. Let's check in on markets with Julie Hyman. Julie, steady as she goes.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen the Dow and the S&P take a little bit of a leg lower, but it's very small. We still have a pretty tight trading range and not much change overall for the major averages. The Dow and the Nasdaq did earlier touch record highs, but they weren't able to sustain that move here. So not seeing much action there. That's reflected in volatility as well, not just for stocks, but across assets. Take a look at the Bloomberg here. We have a global currency volatility index here in white. We've got the VIX in blue. We've got the MOVE index of bond volatility here in purple. All of them still remain at very subdued levels today. Even as volume picks up a little bit, volatility still has not. Now, if you look at stocks today, they're not sending you a very clear picture of whether it's sort of a risk-on or risk-off attitude. If you look at other assets, however, there's somewhat more of a consistent view because we are seeing a little bit of a selling here in the 10-year. That's sending yields up by 2 basis points. The dollar going in the same direction. Though gold is not really...
Yeah, indeed. Let me say, like, oh my god, this is amplified, guys! Amplified, hell yeah. What the fuck is that? I want Optifine. I want Optifine so I could see that. However, Optifine does not exist here in PS4. So yeah, markets are pretty mixed, of course, of the testimony of Comey, the former FBI director. Yeah, but there are, of course, other news. Brits heading to the polls. UK decides they have a little less than 2 hours left. Then we will also won't be any more streaming because I'm going to provide Facebook coverage. You can follow that. Not wrong. You can follow that Facebook coverage. I will put the link where you can find my posts about the British elections after the live stream has aired right now. Nordstrom. Okay. Now, this is amplified world in Minecraft PS4. If you don't know what I'm doing, first time ever I do amplified world on Minecraft. And for the ones who don't know what is a Mesa, oh my god! For the ones who don't know amplified what it is, amplified if you want to get rid of mountains, good luck. If you want really to get rid of those mountains, I wish you good luck. Oh my god, look at that. Look, I mean, what amplified actually does is it generates crazy mountains. Crazy, another time, crazy. I think first time to get going, what is our first challenge to get rid of this mountain? I think we need 10 shovels for that alone. Okay, so let's right now transfer some of that woods or convert it into a wooden plank so we can have a crafting table. A crafting table, very good. We are going to having some more planks and some sticks. Wooden pickaxe, yep, indeed. No, not going to have it here. I'm trying to see where I'm going to have my hobbit hole. I'm going to have my hobbit hole probably here. As always, if you don't know my first base technique, what I do is frickin' sand. What my technique is, I always do a 3x3 square on the hobbit hole. That is the hole where, like, a hole in the mountain, such as this. Still two columns left to go. Yeah, we got rid of it. 24. Oh my god, which is a good amount. Okay, we have to cover it up with some dirt. Okay, now we have some stone. We can convert that into a stone pickaxe. Because I'm going to start on my mineshaft already, or going to start on the first bits of the mineshaft. It would be too dark to mine right now. So I am going to put some sand blocks on here. You can see there's a big chunk of it due in 2020 and then once again in 2044. Most of that in rollovers. This is the bond principal here in blue. And we did some analysis of Bloomberg Data that you'd be looking at adding at least like making the mountain like unclear, like okay, so we have a pickaxe right now. We can do the start of the mineshaft. Just start. I want to get a lot of stone because I want to have a furnace. I always those other stone types. I got 15 already, and some coal, which is good because I can make some torches right now with this coal. Going to do that already right now. So, torch. Yep. And okay, well, we're going to activate the Bloomberg Markets live stream. They don't talk about that, but that's not an UK broadcaster. It's an US broadcaster. It's from a US source, meaning that will be legal, I think. Why can't I play the freaking block there? Oh, thank you to let me play the block there. The live stream looks to be a little bit weird. It doesn't want to load up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reload it. Try if it works now.
That's piled into this sector as well, which is actually quite fascinating.
Yeah, we're again at Nordstrom. That is good. So we are still playing until which time is that? Well, London it's 10 p.m. I heard there. Then the polls close. Then I think it's -5. That means 5 p.m. Eastern. We get the exit polls. So we're just 1 hour 45 minutes at least.
Let's get you checked out the headlines now. Bloomberg First Word News this afternoon with Mark Crumpton. Mark, I'm guessing we start in Washington.
Yes, we do, Scarlett. President Trump's attorney, Mark Kasowitz, spoke to reporters today. He said the president never suggested that former FBI Director James Comey let go of the investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Kasowitz added that Mr. Comey's testimony on the Hill today made clear the president never sought to impede the investigation into attempted Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election.
The president feels completely vindicated and is eager to continue moving forward with his agenda, with the business of this country, and with this public cloud removed.
And Mr. Kasowitz added the president never pressured Mr. Comey. During his appearance before the Senate Intelligence Committee today, Mr. Comey discussed his conversations and meetings with President Trump in the days before he was fired. Speaking publicly for the first time since his May 9th dismissal, Comey began his testimony by saying the administration's explanation for his firing concerned him.
The administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple.
Comey also told the committee he took detailed notes of his conversations with the president because he honestly felt the president would lie about the nature of the meetings. London police have arrested 6 people on terrorism offenses. 3 were arrested in connection with last weekend's London Bridge
attack.
The other 3 weren't. 8 people were killed in that attack. The anti-Maduro protests in Venezuela continue, with 1 teenager killed and over 190 injuries reported today. President
Trump
managing the country's funds. Opposition supporters plan to march in Caracas at 5 o'clock Wall Street time to honor the killed protester. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. Scarlett.
Thank you so much, Mark. Coming up, the future of the leadership at J.P. Morgan could be up in the air. We've got Guggenheim Securities Senior Analyst Eric Wasserstone joining us to break down what COO Matt Zane's exit means for J.P. Morgan. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Television.
Look at this. Look at this. A freaking ravine. Oh my god. I have to be careful right now. I hear a baby zombie. It's not good, of course. I'm going to wait, chat. It's so tunneling down. So this is what I'm going to do currently. We want to walk on there, so no! Oh my god! Redstone. I can see you indeed, but I have to get up there. Like, I can use that sand, I don't need that right now. And the rest I do with the dirt here. Okay, we're back up. Oh my god. Luckily there was water. Luckily there is water indeed. I would have been dead otherwise. I left it like this. Okay. Okay, we're picking up on the market news.
AOL, which the company is also acquiring. Valiant has agreed to sell its Inova Pharmaceuticals unit to funds managed by Pacific Equity Partners and the Carlyle Group. The price, $930 million in cash. Valiant is trying to pay down almost $29 billion in debt that it occurred during the deal-making binge. Urban Outfitters shares plunging today as sales continue to weaken. The company warned second quarter comparable store sales are dropping in the high single digits as shoppers turn more and more to e-commerce. The retailer's first quarter same-store sales also fell more than forecast. An investor group is lobbying for a board overhaul. And that's your Business Flash update.
Julia, let me just give you a quick market check here because we saw stocks fall to recession lows about 20 minutes ago, and they've since recovered, but when you look at how the major indexes are faring, it's little change once again. We thought that today will kind of break the logjam in terms of not much movement in equities. It hasn't done anything to that effect.
No, and there are a few risk events that we were looking ahead to, of course. The testimony of James Comey, which we've talked about in great detail. UK voters going to the general election, of course, and the European Central Bank. So on the whole, an interesting day. And speaking of banks, JP Morgan COO Matt Zanes is leaving the bank, the possible successor to Jamie Dimon making the announcement this afternoon in a memo. Joining us with a look at what this means for JP Morgan's succession plan is Guggenheim Securities analyst Eric Wasserstrom. Eric, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
There's a big glass ceiling, it appears, at JP Morgan, and it's in the form of Jamie Dimon. She said.
Possibly. I mean, JP has been, many wonderful, incredibly talented executives have come out of JP Morgan. And I imagine that the same situation might be a similar one where he got to a very senior level inside the organization. There probably isn't enough upside for him or much in the near-term horizon, and there might be greener pastures in another organization.
Eric Schatzker was detailing for us the many senior executives who've left JP Morgan and gone on to helm other banks, whether it's Bill Winters, whether it's Jess Staley. Is that what is in the future, or might he go in another direction? What do we know about Matt Zanes, the executive?
Well, his background is primarily inside the investment bank at JP Morgan. But many investment bankers, or in his case, his experience was fairly broad-based, have ended up in senior management positions at other organizations outside the banking industry, and even outside of fintech. So probably lots of opportunity, I would speculate.
What do we know about the relationships that Jamie Dimon has with his senior executives? Is there a perhaps read across from all of those that have left beyond this idea that waiting for Jamie Dimon to retire or leave is potentially going to be a long time, and actually that he's a pretty difficult man to work for?
Well, I don't know that I have insights into that specifically, but I think that if you I think more broadly, if you look at the organization and the number of leaders that have come out of that organization, and this is probably true for some others as well, like Goldman Sachs, it's a place where there's just a very, very rigorous culture, a culture of execution and a culture of excellence, and that makes for an excellent breeding ground for executives across many, many industries.
They're in demand.
They're in demand.
Yeah. Do people not want to be CEO of a U.S. bank anymore? Might that be part of it? I mean, we look at Jess Staley, who's gone on to Barclays, and Mike Cavanaugh, who's now CFO at Comcast. Bill Winters is at Standard Chartered. Maybe being the CEO of a U.S. bank in this kind of environment is more trouble than it's worth.
Maybe, but I don't think so.
Am I stretching here?
5 years ago, perhaps?
Yeah, I would say some years ago. But I think one of the things that may run counter to that view is just the length of tenure of some of the current executives. They've lived through the worst. The outlook is undoubtedly better than that was. And to the extent that the economy continues to evolve and there's so many innovations going on in the industry and outside of it that they need to respond to, it's actually probably an exciting time to be a senior executive.
And in terms of those that remain as a future heir apparent, are there plenty of choices?
I mean, they tend to have a very deep bench. I mean, all of the executives that you highlighted in the segment earlier are all very, very well respected, deeply talented individuals. And I think individuals who have a long history there, even the ones who have come from other institutions, as Gordon Smith has, for example, but I think feel like they've had very broad-based experiences there which prepare them for bright futures.
Eric, great to chat to you. Thank you for your insight. Eric Wasserstrom, analyst at Guggenheim Securities.
Still ahead, we've got our options trade, and our options trader is taking a look at how to trade the utility sector ETF XLU. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
So, indeed, of course, so we now are building our mine shaft, which is a long way down. I don't also know which level we are currently. However, we found our first iron. Very good. If you're just joining in, we are doing Minecraft markets now, which today is a British election day. Brits heading to the polls for voting for the parliament. Last time they voted, the Conservative Party won with almost nothing. 332 seats, meaning if they lose 6, if they lose 6, they don't have the majority. It was a tight majority, 51% it was actually. So we are looking forward to. Oh, we are at Bedrock already. Have to do some experimenting here because not everything is stone. We have to find out. We could better make some more torches. That's better. Okay, it's very much better.
This is Bloomberg Markets. I'm Julia Chatterley.
And I'm Scarlett Bow.
And it's now time for Options Insight with Julie Hyman. Julie.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Scarlett. Joining me for today's Options Insight is Kevin Kelly. He's the Chief Investment Officer at Recon Capital. Kevin, as I pointed out earlier, volatility continues to be nowhere. But a theme that we talked about earlier in the week here on Bloomberg is something that you had picked up on, and it has to do with volatility of tech specifically and of the NASDAQ. We have a chart of that on the Bloomberg that looks at the NASDAQ 100 volatility versus the VIX, which tracks the S&P 500, and it's pretty elevated, as we can see there, and it has been trending upward. So tech volatility, extrapolating, has been higher than the broader market. What's your takeaway from that?
Well, it started to pick up after earnings season. We know earnings season really kind of compresses volatility because people are solely focused on corporate earnings, guidance, things of that nature. And then when you get into macro environment, that's when volatility comes back. But historically, the NASDAQ 100 typically has about 2 to 5 points higher in volatility than the S&P 500, and that's just inherent in the nature of the construction of the index, and that's because these are mostly cyclical stocks. Think about it. You've got Netflix, Tesla, even Whole Foods is in there, aside from your tech stalwarts, which are, Apple, Microsoft, Google. So typically there's not defensive nature to it like, utilities. So that's why it should be higher. But what was more impressive is that actually on that chart, if you look, you saw actually the volatility of the NASDAQ 100 come below 1 compared to the S&P 500. And that's pretty telling, showing that how everybody was moving into tech and there wasn't really volatility in technology. So that's I think the more telling thing when you look at that chart.
Not so much where it is now, but where it has come from, where
Yeah,
it has been
exactly.
over the past month or so. You mentioned utilities, you mentioned defensive tier. That's a group that happens to be underperforming today as we see rates pop up a little bit in today's session. Utilities tend to move inversely. And you're looking at utilities for your play today, the XLU. Why?
Yeah, when you look at, I looked at the options trading market earlier today on the XLU, which is the ETF that tracks the sector of utilities. You saw that there was 8.5 times the amount of puts being traded versus the calls. And next week we're going to be hearing the Fed come out. So this is a way to actually hedge your bets against the utility sector because they are still relatively expensive compared to the historical financials. And so it's actually cheaper than when the Fed raised rates last time. We looked at this before. When the Fed raised rates, you had implied volatility over 18. Right now, implied volatility is just 12 in the utilities. So it's a great time to hedge should something happen next week. And so what you want to do is you want to go to July and just buy the $53 put. That's it for 72 cents. You're protected here. The ETF is trading at about 53.50, so you're going to have that protection out to July. So in case some things do percolate after the Fed, you'll have some more time for this to play out.
And just quickly here, I'm curious, is this also sort of directionally a yield call?
Yes.
By extension? Do you think then that will we not continue to see yields? I mean, we've been seeing yields trend up lately, but there has been a lot of skepticism that would continue.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting when you look at the 10-year Treasury and then what's happening also in the stock market, right? And we know the Fed is actually focused on the stock market, and they've talked about it in their minutes as well as so they want the stock market up on the year, and they also want volatility down, and this is the perfect time to keep raising rates, and so they may talk about unwinding the balance sheet, which could negatively impact this. Cheap way to hedge.
Okay, Kevin, thank you so much. Kevin Kelly of Recon Capital, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Julie. Still ahead, the House is set to vote on the Republican-backed Dodd-Frank overhaul. This is the Financial Choice Act. We've got the future of the bill and the implications for the markets. This is Bloomberg.
All right, let's have a look at here. Okay, we have right now a lot of stone, more than 2 stacks. We need a furnace right now, and I'm going to make 2 already. So I'm going to make 2 furnaces. Alright. I can put some wood in there because I don't want to use coal for that. This is the only thing what we have. This is iron ore. We need also food. I think what I'm going to do is smelt this iron ore, get a bucket, eat the rotten flesh, and get food. We really need to get food, so I really want. I'm wondering, is there a cow anywhere nearby? I can't see a freaking cow. There's a cow as well as a chicken and pig. There's seeds. There's some more trees and such. So what I'm going to do is also get myself an axe. So a wooden axe. Oh, I already have one. So we're going to chop the trees right now. Okay. Chop some more trees. Because apple drops are very rare. Want to chop as many trees, not the big trees, but the smaller trees. Oak trees, or dark oak is good as well. It's almost time to go back.
It's time now for First Word News. Former FBI Director James Comey today gave his heavily awaited testimony on Capitol Hill, shedding light on his talks with and meetings with President Trump in the days prior to his dismissal. Comey Comey says he helped reveal details of his private conversations because he felt it would speed up the appointment of a special counsel in the investigation of Russia, but stopped short of saying whether he felt President Trump tried to interfere.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense.
Comey also told the Senate Intelligence Committee he took detailed notes of his conversations with the president because he honestly felt Mr. Trump would lie about the nature of the meetings. The president's personal attorney says he never directed Mr. Comey to stop investigating anyone, and that includes former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Speaking today in response to Comey's testimony, Mark Kasowitz accused the former director of leaking privileged communications with the president, and he said Mr. Trump is, quote, entitled to expect loyalty from those serving the administration. Kasowitz also says the president never told Comey, I need loyalty, I expect loyalty, as Comey claimed. In the UK, voting is underway in the country's second general election in 2 years. A total of 650 members of parliament will be elected. Almost 47 million people are registered to vote. Tune in for Bloomberg TV's one-hour special today at 5 p.m. New York time. We'll have instant analysis of the markets as exit polls in the UK are published. A Yemeni health official says more than 96,000 people have been infected with cholera in an outbreak that has caused nearly 750 deaths since late April. Health officials blame the outbreak on the 2-year-old Saudi-led campaign against Houthi rebels. The fighting has damaged infrastructure and caused shortages of medicine. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg.
World headquarters in New York, I'm Julia Chatterley.
I'm Scarlett Boo.
And I'm Joe Weisenthal. We're 30 minutes from the close of trading here in the U.S.
U.S. stocks trading mixed in the wake of Super Thursday.
The question is, what do you miss?
Comey testifies in the first public appearance since his dismissal. Former FBI Director James Comey said President Trump lied about his firing.
The administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple.
And wasting no time in firing back, Trump's personal attorney, Mark Kasowitz, told reporters that the president denies pressuring Comey and obstructing the investigation.
The president feels completely vindicated and is eager to continue moving forward with his agenda, with the business of this country, and with this public cloud removed.
But the day is far from over. The House moves to vote on a bill that could potentially overhaul Dodd-Frank this afternoon. We'll take you live to Capitol Hill this hour.
But first, let's take a look at where the major averages stand as we head towards the close. Bloomberg's Abigail Dukesel is standing by. Abigail.
Hi there, Julia. Well, considering that today was being called Super Thursday by some with the ECB decision, of course, the Comey testimony, and the UK election, not a lot happening for stocks here in the U.S. We're looking at very small moves. Once again, I say small because the S&P 500 this week, every day has closed down down or up less than 0.3% right now, down just a fraction. The Dow has just looked green. The Nasdaq, though, holding on to slightly bigger gains, up about 0.3%. Nonetheless, we do have some records here. Both the Dow and the Nasdaq have put in all-time highs. And take a look at the Russell 2000. The small cap index is up about 1.4% and just points away from potentially closing at a record high. So stay tuned there. Now, some of the outperformance for the Nasdaq and the Russell 2000 is coming from the chip sector. We have the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, or the SOX, up 1.5%. And the biggest weighting to the Russell 2000, AMD, up once again, up 3.7% right now, up for its fourth day in a row, up 17% over that time period. And Stacey Rathbone, an analyst over at Bernstein yesterday, told me he thinks this has to do with two things. First, chips in new Apple products, And second, he's taking a ton of calls from clients.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
To be positive. It's not
Oh my
entirely
God.
clear
Oh
right
my
now.
God.
Certainly
Oh
it's
my
helping the
God.
stock for sure. We also have Texas Instruments trading higher and Nvidia trading higher after Citi said that they think the stock could double. And get this, less than 2 years ago, that was a $19 stock, now trading at $159. So huge move there. Helping to explain or a story on the day, the financials. We do have the financials trading higher, have been helping the major averages trade a little bit higher earlier, paring those gains just a little bit. But here's Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Morgan Stanley. Again, outperformance here, up more than 1%. The sector on a whole, the S&P 500 banking index, in fact, is having its best day since April 24th. And of course, JP Morgan, some big news today, the fact that COO or Chief Operating Officer Matt Zames is leaving after 13 years with the bank. Hasn't had much of an effect on the stock, but it does really have the potential successor. He has been seen as a potential successor for Jamie Dimon, the CEO, Julia. So did certainly make some headlines there, Julia.
Absolutely, we're going to be talking about that later on in the show. Thanks, Abigail. What do you miss? Fired FBI Director James Comey finally took center stage at his Senate intelligence hearing today. One underlying question is whether any of the communications he had with the president amounted to an obstruction of justice. Comey was reluctant to express a direct opinion on this key question.
Do you believe Donald Trump colluded with Russia?
It's a question I don't think I should answer in an open setting. As I said, when I left, we did not have an investigation focused on President Trump. But that's a question that'll be answered by the investigation, I think.
For more of the highlights, let's bring in Kevin Cirilli, Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent. So many more questions here, Kevin. I know you were in the thick of it, but one of the key things for me here actually was what came out of the statement from Mark Kasowitz, Donald Trump's personal attorney, when he said, look, what was reiterated here was that the president is not under investigation in connection with the Russian re-elections, but he also said there's no evidence that a single vote changed as a result of any Russian interference. And this cuts to the core of what we're trying to investigate here, doesn't it?
Julia, you're absolutely right. A remarkable day here on Capitol Hill as the former FBI director testifying for the first time publicly since President Trump fired him. But there is now, according to the Republicans I'm talking to, no question about Russia's involvement into the presidential election. The question, though, that is divided from a political standpoint is that whether or not President Trump obstructed justice. Now, some of the top Republicans who have criticized President Trump heavily in the past, like Senator John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, have all defended this president, somewhat surprisingly to some folks, for saying that there was not an obstruction of justice. But I caught up with Senator Rubio after the hearing to ask him point blank about what the president could do to respond to, again, Russia's interference in the election. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I don't think it's a question of if they interfered. I think it's a question of how. And to the extent that that interference involved interaction with Americans, I think the president would be interested if some of those Americans were people that somehow were connected to his campaign. According to Director Comey, the president himself agreed that there are satellites, as he called them, associated with his campaign who did something wrong. It would be good to know about it.
Now, Senator Lindsey Graham has a bill that would increase sanctions against Russia that is due, of course, for consideration within the next couple of weeks. That has to be approved by the Senate Banking Committee. I spoke with the chairman of that committee yesterday. And of course,
first that's
on the day when the House is expected to move
nothing worth shift, keep inventory on.
According to the Senate Banking Committee,
little bit of cheating, but
they're not going to be able to take up any of those legislative priorities until first they deal with Russia.
All right, Kevin Cirilli, fascinating day in D.C. Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent. Thank you very much. What you miss? Going to the precipice of default on treasuries has become almost routine as Congress squabbles over federal finances. Bloomberg intelligence analysis suggests the government would default in October if the debt ceiling isn't raised, causing the Fed to pause on whether or not to raise rates. Joining us now is Bloomberg intelligence analyst Ira Jersey. Ira, thank you very much for joining us. So we've seen this thing every couple of years. Yeah. No one really thinks we're going to default, but as we get closer, you do start to see some reaction or some anxiety build in the very short-term end of the market. on fears that something could happen, they trip the wire in some way.
That's right. It takes between 2 and 3 weeks before kind of the drop dead date. And call it right now, best guess is early October. That being said, there's a lot of variables that go into that date because we get really close at the end of August as well. And that's something actually that some administration officials have been talking about is we get too close for comfort even at the end of August. So that's why they really want Congress to act in July.
How important is the dissension in the ranks that we're seeing here between Mick Mulvaney and Steve Mnuchin? They're concerned over whether this is a clean debt ceiling or whether there's going to be conditions attached.
Well, at the end of the day, that's a political decision. I think for most Treasury investors, for people who buy U.S. government securities, the safest securities in the world that are used as a benchmark for almost every debt instrument everywhere on our planet, they would like just to see a permanent suspension and just say, look, let's not worry about this. This is a fiscal issue. The fact is that Congress makes a budget, and that budget has a deficit, and you have to fund that deficit somehow. It's a spending issue and a revenue issue. It's not whether or not we should pay our debt. It's just an argument that they keep having, and some people just want to use it to kind of handcuff others into seeing their point of view. Otherwise, Armageddon occurs.
Well, and until they make a decision on that, it's a fundraising issue as well. So how does the government prepare for this in terms of what kind of supply they do make available to investors?
Yeah, so one of the things that's likely to happen is these shorter and shorter maturity T-bills. So normally they issue a lot of 6-month bills and 1-year bills. So they're going to wind up issuing a lot of 1-month bills and eventually maybe even 1 or 2-week bills that go right up to that October 3rd date.
Here's one question. You said the word Armageddon, and of course, when we think of bad things happening in the world or the world economy, you buy treasuries. So if there were some big geopolitical event or something, the knee-jerk move is to buy treasuries. What happens when the treasury market itself is the source of that anxiety? Where's the safe haven bid go?
Well, that's one of these unknowns that nobody really knows about. And the problem with the default is once we default and don't make a principal or coupon payment on one of our bonds, we can't ever take that back. So the question is, will people believe that the U.S. government is truly a sound investment? And if not, you wind up maybe going to Germany or other places in the world, even with 0 or negative interest rates.
I want to go back to T-bills for a moment here, because if we're going to be looking for the government to issue a lot of those short-term bills, what does that do to the demand picture? What have we seen in the past? Because it's not like it's the first time we've hit up against the debt ceiling deadline.
Yeah, so normally when you get within a couple of weeks of the debt ceiling date, you wind up seeing a pretty dramatic rise in yield. So when this happened, for example, in 2011, interest rates were 0. T-bill rates were literally 0, and they rose from 0 to 25 basis points, which doesn't sound like a lot, except remember, that's a Fed hike, and it happened in very short term. In fact, it happened, and you can see this particular chart shows the last 3 times that this happened. You saw very dramatic and telling increases in T-bills. And this is the type of thing you want to expect. You can't expect, though, until we're right up against that ceiling, because everyone hopes that we'll get it done beforehand, and it almost never happens.
You always have to wonder, do people sell T-bills but buy the long end, because that's still the knee-jerk move on risk-off. Bloomberg intelligence rate strategist Ira Jersey, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
So we're just getting some headlines across the Bloomberg here. Obviously, Donald Trump has been speaking at the White House with the governors and mayors about his infrastructure plans. This is Infrastructure Week, by the way, guys, for the administration, in case anyone forgot. Yes, exactly. He's saying that infrastructure will take off like a rocket ship. I like that line. And, of course, he's speaking at this event with highlighting infrastructure. We're going to have a recording very shortly of the comments that he's made after that meeting, so we will bring you that as soon as we get it.
In the meantime, coming up, Meg Whitman has told Bloomberg that she still has work to do at CEO of Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We'll bring you highlights from our exclusive interview next. This is Bloomberg.
Yes, what we're doing now is we are getting rid of this mountain here. Oh my god. Also, I can't wait until next Tuesday, of course. Gun running is coming out 10. If you don't know it yet, watch my video. I'm in 2 videos. One is about announcement that's gun running. You can see the trailer in there. And the second one is a trailer breakdown I did by myself. Well, in the comments, no, not in the comments, in the description section, I will put a list of everything. I will be doing that while I can't go on like today also, so I don't waste any time. So, okay. We're almost done here. It's a lot that we have to clear here. Look at how much we have to clear, indeed. We're not yet down below. We have to go there. Well, we already used 3 shovels. Okay. A lot still to do. Yeah, I really want to get rid of this mountain here. And okay, now I'm going back into my hobbit hole here. Well, first I'm going to make a chest out of the wood I have.
What do you miss? Hewlett-Packard Enterprise CEO Meg Whitman says the company is facing a slowdown in cloud. In a rare sit-down, Whitman explained how the company is re-examining their strategy and partnerships. She sat down exclusively with Bloomberg Technology anchor Emily Chang.
The way we see the world is it's around hybrid IT, and you have to start with your apps and your data. What do you want locked down in your data center, untouched only by your employees' hands? What might you want in a private cloud, on-prem, with public cloud economics, by the way? What would you want in a managed service? And there is a role for public cloud, but we're seeing, for reasons of cost, security, control, that people are beginning to say, I wonder if I have gone too far in putting workloads into the public cloud, and they want to bring those workloads back onto on-prem.
So what does that mean for HPE?
Well, it means that we have to do what's in our customers' best interest, and their best interest is all around creating a multi-cloud environment, a hybrid IT environment, where they can have the right landing spot for their applications and their workloads. And we make sure that they don't end up with vendor lock-in. You know, a lot of people say that once you move something to the public cloud, it's very difficult to move it back, and it's very expensive. So we want to just give customers choice and make sure that we do for them what is best for them.
Now, there have been some questions about your cloud partnership with Microsoft. How is that actually going?
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, it really is going well. We've done a lot of business with Microsoft for many years, and they are our public cloud partner. So when we work with a customer and they say, listen, these are the workloads that I'd like to have in the public cloud, then we say, you know what, Azure is a great opportunity. And if you want Azure cloud functionality on-prem, you do Azure Stack. And Azure Stack runs on HP gear on-prem. And so I think, I think Microsoft's got a very good strategy, and we're great partners with them. And again, it's about giving customers choice. Where do they want their workloads? Where do they want their data? And if they want a public cloud partner, we recommend Azure.
But if they start making some of their own data center equipment, what does that mean for HPE?
Well, this is a dynamic industry, and, it's interesting. For a long time, infrastructure wasn't in fashion, but we see all kinds of people now getting into the infrastructure business. So if that's what Microsoft does, then we'll try to figure out how to, have a relationship around co-opetition. Sometimes we cooperate, sometimes we compete. We'll figure out how to work with them. We admire the company a lot, and, we'll figure it out.
Now, tech stocks have been on a tear since the election, despite political uncertainty. What are the market dynamics that you see helping or hurting HPE?
Yeah, so it's a challenging global environment right now. There's some countries that are doing very well, and then there's uncertainty in a number of countries, and uncertainty is not good for business. So our strongest market in Europe is Germany. Germany's doing incredibly well. We're seeing a lot of business in Germany, but the UK is challenged. Public sector spending is down. The UK firms and people investing in the UK are holding back, I think, because of Brexit. And it doesn't mean they won't spend, but they're kind of paused and saying, gee, I don't know what's going to happen here. Maybe I should just take a little time to think it through. Japan actually is pretty strong for us right now. Australia is coming back. Latin America is doing very well. And the U.S. continues to be a little uneven. Sometimes, one quarter is quite strong, and then we see a little bit of weakness. So it's a mixed environment. But, listen, we have to make it work in every environment. So we sell as hard as we can and try to give customers as much choice no matter what's going on in the backdrop.
You've led several different high-profile technology companies. I'm curious what you think about the unicorn startups, what you see them doing well, what you see them doing poorly.
Yeah, so listen, the startup scene in Silicon Valley and elsewhere is alive and well. I mean, it's a renaissance of innovation. I mean, think about what you're seeing. And listen, there's a lot of very innovative companies that are unicorn valuations. What we are seeing is the ability of venture capital money to keep funding money-losing startups is we're starting to see a pullback there. And one of the reasons that we were able to buy SimpliVity is it wasn't clear they were going to be able to raise the next round, and they needed to be tucked into a big company. Nimble had a great fundraising round, but felt like now they needed to be tucked into a big company. So we think there's always going to be unicorns, there's always going to be new companies, and but we think it does present an opportunity for us as we think about our M&A strategy and our innovation strategy.
HPE is heavily investing in what you call the machine, or your vision for the future of computing. How will this help customers in the future, and how is that vision evolving?
So one of the big challenges our industry faces is the demand to build data centers, the demand for space, and the demand for energy is unsustainable. I mean, we work in parts of the world where there is no more energy on the grid. So that caused us, a number of years ago to think through the fundamental model of compute. It's always been a CPU-centric model. And we said, can we turn that on its head and make it a memory-centric compute where instead of through copper wires data is moved, it's moved through photonics, which would mean smaller space, far more energy efficiency. And we're super pleased with the progress of the machine. We're already embedding parts of the technology into our next generation servers and storage. And we're super excited about the amount of data that can be processed with very low power utilization and in a small form factor. So it's right on track. It's had its ups and downs as these big research projects do, but we're super excited about it.
And that was Wes Whitman, CEO of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, speaking exclusively with Bloomberg's Emily Chang.
And coming up, political volatility in Europe has fallen off the radar as establishment parties succeed the Netherlands and France. As the demand for havens like bonds have fallen, the appetite for riskier assets like stocks has grown. We'll show you this evolving dynamic next. This is Bloomberg.
Okay, we are going into the final section of this live stream. We're still going on till to I think a little bit past over the hour. I think 15 minutes, something like that. All right. We're going again to the mountain, which is that you could see what I used actually to get rid of a freaking mountain. Oh my god! And it's still very huge. This is a lot. That is more than 1,000 blocks. That mountain is more than 1,000 blocks. So here we go. Yeah, a lot, and we keep on doing.
What you missed, European stocks have been benefiting from a rotation out of the United
Oh wait.
budget minutes. European stocks have been benefiting from a rotation out of the United States. European stocks have now gained a yield advantage as well. We know we've been talking about these lower bond yields across the Eurozone. So what this chart is showing here is the spread between the Euro Stoxx 50, that's the stock index, the dividend yield, and the Portuguese 10-year yield, so the spread between those two. And when we see the green part, that indicates European stocks' dividend yield climbing back above Portuguese 10-year yields. And the reason we picked Portugal, of course, is because it has the highest yield among the major euro area economies. Earlier in the year, of course, the stocks had lost the yield advantage, but we see now how it's come back into the green. So once again, it's just another reason that investors are piling into European stocks right now.
A very popular theme that we've heard many times on the show.
And Mario Draghi gave them plenty of reason to continue to do so.
Yeah, as long as you're specific about what stocks you're talking about, because it was interesting to look at what they did there with downgrading the inflation forecast. Even if it is minor, it's something to watch, particularly if you're looking at the 2s, 10s spread in the yield curve, the German bonds, of course, because then you're looking at the flatness of the curve. And actually, the curve was the narrowest, the 2s, 10s spread, the narrowest it's been in 5 months heading into that ECB meeting. So if you're talking about a downgrade of inflation expectations, then clearly that's going to be okay for bondholders. Not so great if you're talking about the banks, when you're talking about flattening curves in Europe. And as you can see, this chart is showing you, you've got the 2s, 10s spread there in blue, you've got the financials index in white, and they've tracked each other pretty closely. So flatter curves, not so great for banks.
Yeah, big again.
So the question is, of course, what you missed, but also the question is, at what point would we see more acceleration of rate hikes in the euro area? In the U.S., people are waiting for wage growth, and in the euro area, it's the same thing. This chart from Bloomberg Intelligence, euro area average earnings year-over-year percent change is just at a 1.8%, very subdued, nowhere near the sort of peaks that we had seen pre-crisis. So it's sort of a reminder, this is a global phenomenon. I mean, we know the various factors in the U.S. that contribute to mediocre wage growth, but it really isn't just a U.S. story. It's very much global, at least developed market story, sort of mediocre wage growth. So, look, and in Europe, they're not even to where they were in 2011, barely above where they were in 2013. So another reason that Mario Draghi is not going to be under much pressure to accelerate anytime soon.
And it is exactly what they've cited, and they've said it's part-time workers going into the workforce rather than suppressing wage growth in Europe.
Absolutely.
All right, the market close here in the United States is next. Take a look at the major indexes. With less than 4 minutes to go before the close, you're looking at barely any moves in the Dow and the S&P 500. Financials, though, big movers today. This is Bloomberg.
All right. Yes, indeed, not that much anymore to go. We're just 2 minutes away from the close of markets on the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq, and so just the US market close. We are also coming to the live stream close, and then I'm going to prepare for the British election night, which is going to start in just 1 hour, 0 minutes and 52 seconds. Brits have left to vote. Then it's 10 PM London time, you're 5 PM Eastern then. Just not much to go, it's only this, so we should be getting there. We must be getting there. It's not that much. Okay, market close imminent. Very imminent. We are seconds away.
Well, Nasdaq closing at a new record high. Meanwhile, the S&P and the Dow barely positive on this Super Thursday after the Comey testimony. I'm Julia Cassidy. I'm Scarlett Hill.
And I'm Joe Weisenthal. If you're tuning in live on Twitter, we want to welcome you to our Closing Bell coverage every weekday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah. Alright. That was it for Minecraft markets. Now, what we can see is the Nasdaq closes at a record high. So, thanks everyone for watching the live stream. Next live stream is going to be GTA again. We are going to prepare us for the gun running update. I don't know when it is. Probably maybe tomorrow or so, or Saturday, or throughout the weekend. Alright, we'll see you very shortly. It's time, it's almost time to find out how the Brits have voted, because they can still vote little less than an hour. We'll see you very shortly, as said. Bye bye for now.
Technology shares, which have been on fire, helping